Hey everybody and welcome. I am Matt, Senior Client Success Manager for White House Custom Color, and we are being joined by the lovely Kristin Karkoska today.
Hi.
So thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back to you in just a second here. We just want to make a couple announcements before we get busy. Would love if you would hit the subscribe button for the WHCC YouTube. You'll get notified of all the cool stuff that we're doing on there, like what we're going to be chatting with Kristin about today. Make sure and follow along on Instagram at WHCC Pro. And for all your product details, questions, everything that you want to know about WHCC, check out whitehousecustomcolor.com, WHCC.com for all of the product details. If you do have questions for Kristin as we're going along today, make sure and put them into the chat. And if you're watching this on the rewind, put them into the comments, and we will definitely check and see if she can answer those questions for you along the way. We know how to find her. So anyway, you're not here to listen to me. We're going to talk to you today, so thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This is great.
Absolutely. Flew in from California yesterday.
Yeah, it was great.
Awesome. Had a lovely evening downtown.
Yes. Absolutely.
Absolutely. So for everybody following along and listening today that doesn't know who you are, can you tell us a little bit more about you, the business? I know you have 2 locations. Give us a little intro to that.
Okay. Hi, I'm Kristin Karkoska. I'm the owner of Blue Skies Studio, formerly, very long time ago, Blue Sky Salon and Studio. I started my business in 2002. With a retail 3,500 square foot studio. We also had a children's hair salon, a tea and birthday party business in there, and a little gift store. And I call that the MBA period. So I learned everything that I wanted to do and everything I didn't want to do. Right. And what I wanted to do, I found, was creative photography. So in 2007, I moved from a retail into a home studio. Okay. I did that until about 2016, and then opened a small studio in like a mixed-use type space in Laguna Beach in the Canyon. And there's been some transition over those few years. I started with mostly families and kids, or even primarily kids to start with. Then went into families and more outdoor, started with indoor, went to outdoor. And then over the course of the years, I've added high school seniors as the kids that I was photographing got older. Yep. And I really like to do something like a model for a day type session, and that was getting popular in other places, not so much in California. So I started doing that in California, and that was super successful. And then added corporate and branding, just because really for me, I love photographing people. Yep. All people. I want to make all people feel great in front of the camera. I think that's my superpower. So, and then
it's great to have a superpower.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Great. So in 2000 and probably right before COVID, 2019, I really focused on branding and corporate, and then in 2022, I partnered with another photographer, Anna Palmer, and we opened a studio in New York, and that is almost exclusively corporate. I do a few other things, but it's we got a lot of really amazing contracts to do amenity services in big buildings there. Okay. So I'm spending about a week a month there, and the other 3 weeks in California, or traveling to other businesses in San Francisco, Seattle. But
awesome.
It's great. I'm very, very busy, and I'm super blessed.
It sounds like you're really busy. And California to New York.
Yep.
Yes, so you spend a little time in the air going back.
Yeah. I'm getting a lot of frequent flyer miles.
I bet you
I'm
are.
Collecting status, which to me is like, I want to be first in line, so that's awesome.
Yep.
And I love it. I learned to get very compact with my camera equipment. That's been a huge thing, to be able to pack a full studio lights, backgrounds, reflectors, and all my camera equipment, and be able to travel with it. So it's been a great challenge, and I think that also helps me be even better at what I do at home. So when I'm shooting on the beach, I'm using more lighting. I'm making sure that I can get consistent quality across the entire day. Right. And I think they really even though they don't sound like they would, they really do lend each other. So it makes me become a better photographer, I think, all the way around.
Right. And this is a perfect segue into one of our topics that we want to talk to you about today on the live. And when you and I were doing the interview and discussing content for today, you said, and I think in your words, and correct me if I'm wrong, you said, if I wouldn't have had my systems in place from the last 22 years of business and learned along the way what's really important, there's no way I would be able to do the studio in New York. No, there'd be no way that you could handle the volume and all that kind of stuff. So I do want to deep dive into that. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how important are the systems in your business right now?
I would say like possibly 10, at least a 9. I think along the way every single time we've had any issue in the business, I always say, like, how could we prevent this the next time? How can we get better? How can we be more on top of things? And I've, from day one, started with a great database, and I still have the same database, the same email base, same everything that I had in 2002, and I've just added on to it.
Okay.
So I think all the way along, like from communication to fulfillment to making sure clients get their orders to communications, like just everything is dependent on a system for me now.
Right.
And having a very lean team, we do a lot of business, and I have a studio manager in California and a virtual assistant, and that's it.
See, I would have guessed you would have had a much larger staff with the 2 locations now.
No, because we have everything set up, we have all email funnels going, we have all booking funnels going. I do all the customer interfacing, like, so I'm the one who's doing the marketing, I'm the one who's doing communication, I'm the one that's meeting with big companies when we're getting contracts for that. Okay. And then, my virtual assistant is doing all the retouching, order fulfillment, anything that comes from New York, like that's basically once we do, like we'll do 100 people in a day, and then the virtual assistant gets all those files, sorts them, puts them into Pixie Set Gallery, sends out the emails, gives them coupon codes, tracks their orders, retouches their orders, sends them the orders. I mean, I would never be able to do it without having a good system in place, and I'd have a much larger team. I don't want to manage a whole bunch of people.
Right,
so.
Right, exactly. And then you wouldn't get to look out your window at the beach.
Yeah,
exactly. You'd just be staring at your screen all the time.
I don't want to be sitting in front of the computer screen all the time.
Right, exactly. So I'm going to bounce back a few minutes into something that you talked about, and for people following along, I definitely want you to listen to what the response is here. So after talking to countless photographers over the years, you said something that I'm guessing after your years in business, you have a good idea of how to manage, like if something potentially goes wrong, or you have a little fly in the ointment, or a little something. I think the natural gut reaction from somebody who maybe doesn't have the time in the business is, I need to make a rule for that immediately. Mm-hmm. Where then you find yourself making rules for the exceptions all the way along the line, and then you get to it's just a web of mess, for all these rules and regulations. How do you manage that in creating these systems to know, like, that's viable? Yeah. I'm hearing that over and over, or this is that really doesn't mean anything. Like, how do you manage that end of it?
Well, one of the things we say all the time, I wouldn't say this to clients, I say this to people inside, it's our sandbox, and we need to tell everybody the rules to play in our sandbox. And we need to set the expectation in the very beginning, and they know what the expectation is, and there is no, for the most part, there's no exceptions. Right. I mean, there's always an exception, but for example, when we have someone in California say, I don't want to come to an in-person, I want to do something else. We tell them beforehand, this is how we do it. You come to a purchasing appointment. Yep. You come 7 days after your photo shoot. You bring everybody that's a decision maker, and that's how we do it. There's no exception. In fact, we just won't take that client if they're not up for that. That doesn't work for us. And then, of course, we live in a tourist town. I live in Laguna Beach, so a lot of my clients are coming they found me on Google, they found me on an ad, they've been referred. Those are the people that get Zoom reviews. So that's the only 2 things, are Zoom reviews and this. So that's what we really try to say, like, let's clearly communicate up front exactly how we do things, so there's no hiccups on the back end. Yeah,
and I love that. And I hope that everybody really does take note of that, because it does take, like, stand up, take a deep breath. This is how we're going to play in my, like you said, like in my sandbox. If you want to communicate and you want to work with me, these are our rules, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Businesses have rules, and they're there to keep everything consistent. And I think that that's wonderful, and I hope everybody following along heard that. Because it's okay to have rules.
Yeah. I think it's really important to appreciate your clients and to say things with a smile. I think there's a way to say something. Like I've been doing this for 22 years. I've heard everything. I've heard photographers say, like, I tell the clients that if they miss their purchasing appointment, they're going to pay a fee, and this is how I do it. That way of communicating, I don't think is for me, it doesn't work for me, for my business. I think you have to always be very kind and be very, very clear, over-communicate in the front, prevent problems in the front end, let people know what you're doing in the front end so that in the back end you don't have any of those issues. Like, I am a premium price photographer. I need the person that comes in to know what that is. They're going to have an amazing experience, and they've come to me because either they've been referred or they've seen our work, but that comes with that's going to have a certain price expectation,
right.
The last thing you want is someone to come into the review session or the purchasing appointment and be sticker shocked.
Right.
I don't want to have that. And we've over the years done more and more things, and we've tried to just communicate once and only send the price list once, and it didn't work. We've even toyed with the idea of having them sign something that they've read it before the shoot. I don't want to get that legalistic, but
right.
I think it's really important that and this is talking about one little specific thing, but it's all the way along. By not giving flexibility on things that don't really matter, that don't really have to be flexible, it creates a better experience for everybody.
Yeah, totally. So my next question, and I'm going to assume that this would be one of the 3 tips that I'm going to ask you about, is communicating up front. What are the other 2 tips that you would recommend to people following along for creating systems that work?
I think so. That's a great question. Thank you. I think I would kind of break it into 3 parts.
Okay.
So the first system that's super important, maybe one of the most important, is how do you get leads when they come into your system? How are you communicating with them? How are you actually booking them? So I get leads from everywhere. I get leads from Instagram. I get leads from Google Ads. I get leads from phone calls. I get leads from LinkedIn. I mean, there's so many ways of communication.
So many ways now. Yeah.
We capture the lead. We have a good customer management. What did I just got the acronym wrong? Whatever. All right, we have a good database. We have a good database. So we bring the leads in, and then we call it Bobbit. That's my husband's name. He's really good. If he's having a problem, he'll bug he'll make it a point to make it really uncomfortable for you unless you solve his problem. So we don't make it uncomfortable.
Is he your CRM?
He is our little voice in our head. We need to bob it. So I think I've heard this on a podcast or something. People need to be communicated with sometimes 17 times before you quit and say this is not a good lead. Yep. People are busy, especially in my area. They're really busy. So when leads come in, we're going to email them, we're going to text them, we're going to call them. Sometimes we connect with them on social just to make sure that they got the message from us, to make sure the phone number's right. And then we wait a day and we call them again. And we kind of have this whole, and we also put them into an email funnel that's going to start introducing them to us, tell them why we love photography, tell them what the experience is like. So that's the first, I would say, the first system of bringing customers in. The second really important system is, okay, how are you going to do the shoot? Like, what's that look like? What does the whole session look like? Where are we doing it? What lighting do we need? What permits do we need? Who needs to be? I know we talked a little bit about very often I'm doing behind the scenes. That's because I always have an assistant with me. Yep. And then the final system, I mean, there's so many other systems in there, but
that's huge.
Yeah, and then the final would be like once the photo shoot is done, what's happening with those images? How are they? Where are they going? How are we setting up a review system? And in a nutshell, that's the day that I come home from the shoot, I'm copying the cards. I always want to have everything in 2 places. Yeah. I've been doing this for a long time. I've had missing images. I've had every bad thing that could happen has happened at some point with us. So right away, I have it in 2 places. And then we cull through Photo Mechanic. Is much faster for culling, I think, than Lightroom. Create a Lightroom catalog. We use AI which is also the reason I can do so much, is we use Imagen for our Lightroom processing. Okay. Get the Lightroom catalog back, send that to SmugMug. That's backed up in SmugMug. Then my studio manager downloads them, puts them into ProSelect, creates some artwork, creates some samples, and contacts the client. In the meantime, the client's already in that email funnel, so they've already been the day after they do their photo shoot, they're receiving the email saying, thank you so much for working with us. We loved working with your family. Here's what to expect. Within 7 to 10 days, we're going to set up a purchasing appointment. Here's the days that we do it. Here's the evenings that we do it. If that doesn't work for you, let us know. But even down to scheduling, like I've had a lot of photographers I've talked to before that they just give any schedule.
Right.
And I think it's important to manage your schedule too, to say like, here's the days that we do stuff. Here's, you can fit it. We have one weekend day and we have one night during the week, and then we have days to do stuff. So, so all of that, those three combined, and that's a lot of systems. There's many systems in there, but that's kind of, they're all important because it's like beginning to end, because you're not going to get more customers unless at the end of that whole cycle, you have a happy customer who got something, is thrilled with it, and wants to refer you to their friends.
Absolutely. You know, and we live in an experiential world.
Right.
You know, that that is the requirement. It's not even like people like it anymore. Like, you have to have that. And going through that whole timeline and that customer journey, I suppose you could call it, all the way through. And you did, like I requested you skip a rock across it. You definitely did that. I mean, there's countless things in between there that happen. Yeah, so that's awesome. So just a quick reminder before we move on to part 2 here. If you do have questions for Kristin, make sure and put them in the chat while we're live here today. We can have her answer them, or if you're watching the rewind, put them in the comments and we'll track her down to answer them then. So let's talk about the 2 locations real quick.
Sure, absolutely.
So you have Laguna Beach.
Yes.
And you have New York. Yes. So we're going to run a slideshow real quick of some of your beautiful work. We have a bunch of it on the wall here behind us, but we're going to run a slideshow so people can see more of your work up on the screen. So how do the 2 locations differ? Like,
okay, so the first up, Laguna Beach I've been in business for 22 years. Obviously, as a photographer, I think most photographer journey would be, you start with one thing and you kind of build on it, and you find yourself and you find who you are. I know about myself that I love to take clean, beautiful, modern photographs, well lit. And so the California studio, I think I broke it up in like into 30, 30, 40. 30, 40, 30. Families is still 40, maybe less, maybe more. I don't know. I'd have to actually look at the numbers because corporate's coming up. But about 30% seniors and about 30% corporate in California. And then New York is 100% corporate. Now, I do get requests for other things in New York, and we're considering maybe having maybe a day a month where we do, like, we can invite families or we can do something. It's going to look like that system is going to look very different than the California system, so haven't gotten there at this point. And then California, I've been in business for so long. A lot of my clients are repeat. A lot of my clients are my clients' friends. So the family and the senior business, though I do market and do take good care of it, it doesn't take as much care because I've been doing it for so long. As the corporate is always different and always new, so that's like we're spending some marketing time on that.
Yeah, for sure. And very stark differently business models.
Yes,
like
100% different business models. And then that's a thing with the system, like just because you do something a certain way for a certain demographic or a certain business model, like my seniors and families, I ended up now is the same products, the same pricing, because we tried to do different things and that made it too confusing. But the corporate even today is totally different price structure than those two. And that's fine because I do have some crossover. In fact, it's great to be able to, like a lot of the corporate people come into my studio and everything on the walls in the studio is family and seniors. So a lot of times I'll book their family by that, like, oh, you do this beautiful work. But not so much the other way. A little bit of my family and senior saying, oh, you do corporate. It's a little less of that.
Yeah. So even though your New York business or your headshot commercial business is probably more file based.
Yes, exactly.
That eventually does lead in some circumstances to the product based sale.
Totally on California, 100%. And that's like I said. In New York, like I've done some seniors, I've done more college graduation in New York, and those have all bought product. So it would be my goal to potentially do that and potentially have more than one photographer there. I haven't over the course of my career, other than maybe one other photographer, I haven't had a bunch of photographers working out of my studio, but I always had that in the back of my mind that it's not called Kristin Karkoska Photography, it's called Blue Sky Studio, so I could have other photographers. So I think long term that would be more what the goal would be, is to have a corporate photographer in the California office, a corporate photographer. In New York, are a couple corporate photographers, because there's enough of that business to go around for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So question for you, when we're talking to people, usually the big question, how do I market? How do I get leads? What is this generation engine that is running in the background? Yeah. Especially like when you're in California, how is that running in New York?
Yeah.
And when you're in New York, how is that running in California?
Yeah. Well, I always want more leads, so if you have any advice for me, I'll totally take it.
Oh no, we're asking you today.
I totally take it. But okay, I think the New York is pretty genius. Like, I might just pat myself on the back here. So for New York, what happened with New York in a nutshell, without getting into a ton of detail, is Anna came to me and said, like, hey, I'm really interested in partnering and opening a studio in New York together. I knew she was awesome to work with because she had worked with me right out of college, and she'd actually shot for me in California before she'd moved there many years before that, like 10 years before that or more. And she works for a big corporation. And something came across her desk to have basically a lot of big buildings right now are having trouble filling their building with tenants. Yep. So prestige properties like Rockefeller Center, which is one of our contracts, they're looking for ways to reward the people that are in their offices. Okay. And they have club space, they have cocktail hours, they have yoga classes and sound baths and all these things that they offer as a service. Maybe you'd pay $10 to get your nails done, where it would usually cost $50. So they're offsetting the cost, and they're inviting you into their beautiful spaces, and they're trying to get you to go down there and have coffee and to come to the office. They want you to come back to the office. So they want to have these things that are enticing you to come back to the office. Well, one of the things that came across her desk was that a lot of these buildings wanted to offer headshots to all these people. You're coming back, it's more important than ever to have this, great digital presence, be updated. People are finding, because of COVID, there's so much more, a lot less travel and more, Teams or Google Meet or whatever it may be, and they need pictures for that. So she went to her compliance and said, hey, I know I work for this company, but I also have a side hustle, but my partner's full-time, and would be able to bid for this? And she said, as long as you bid for it and you go through the bid process, absolutely. So she called me on a Friday and she said, hey, good news, they said we can bid on this. Bad news, we have to have a New York website, we have to have print material, we have to have insurance, we have to have everything by Monday to submit the
No
bid.
biggie.
So I did everything. I did a full website, New York website. I did all the marketing material. Over the weekend, I did everything. I did a deep dive, and we won the contract.
That's awesome.
So that contract was for I think 12 buildings, just one time. Wow. But they were 100 people in each building, and they filled up pretty quick. So to give you an idea of how many people, Rockefeller Center has 20,000 people that work there. Wow. And so we ended up getting a quarterly contract now for 2 days a quarter, and we fill up in 10 minutes. And so they're paying us the session fee, they're paying us a per person fee, and then they're charging $30 or $40 back to the tenants to come, and that's so that they show up. And we're all familiar with having some fee to make sure someone shows up. Yep. And that's gotten more and more popular, and so what we do then is I go a week a month, and I'll shoot 4 days of full days of maybe 50 or 100 people. And then in our process, going back to our processes, we connect with every single person we shoot with on LinkedIn and say, because we don't know if they know who we are. I mean, we chat with them for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever time we have to shoot, but we want to introduce them to Blue Skies, and we want them to then introduce us back to their company. So through that, we've gotten NBC. We shoot a ton of stuff for NBC, who are in Rockefeller Center. We shot for Simon & Schuster. We've shot for, there's so many people that we've shot for. And then other buildings are also adding amenity services. So now we have a new contract with Heinz, which is they own a bunch of buildings. Cool. So it's a great way to build a business. Don't take my business, guys. Don't try to bid against me. Maybe you're watching this. But anyway, so it's a great way to build a business. And that's how I market that, and that's how we keep that full, is my virtual assistant. She we have all the LinkedIn messaging done, and she just sends it. Once she's sent them their order, she goes through and connects with all of them and says like, hey, it was great meeting you. If your company ever needs additional headshots, we'd love to work with you. All these people leave and go to other companies too, so it's a really great, and they have a great experience. I'm like nice, and then my Anna is funny. And so it's like they have it makes it great if you're comfortable in front of the camera, and especially as someone we're goofy with each other, we'll say like, Kristin's the best headshot photographer, and then her person can hear. Like, we just have a really good time, so that's great. And then how I keep things going in California, I've always been an email marketer, so I send probably once a month, maybe more, maybe less, depending on what time of year it is, messages to my whole market. I do Google ads right now. And that's something I've just started, kind of dabbling in. That's working really well for some segments and not as well for other. But I'm trying to learn that. I do everything from. This is not going to be a surprise to anybody who has a photography business, but donating things, doing auctions, going to shoot for things. I post a lot on social media. I do a lot of behind the scenes. I want people to be my objective with social media and with the stories is for people to see what it's like to shoot with me, that they don't have to know how to pose, that they don't have to know what to do in front of the camera, that that's your job. I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna make it fun for them, I'm gonna have them interact, and they can see that the clients are having fun. Right. I have so many times, especially with family photography, people come in, they got in a fight in the car, they didn't want to wear this, and dad's pissed.
That never happens.
And so,
what are you talking about?
For me, I want them to see like, oh, she's fine with it. Like, I can sense the situation and pretty quickly diffuse whatever's going on. I can tell if there's a teenager that doesn't want to be in the picture. So again, that's like posing and interacting, that's my superpower, so I feel really good with that. So if I can show people what that looks like, that's great. And probably my objective moving forward is to just continue to show more and more products, because I do think I've always thought it's most important. I for a long time never sold digital files. Now they have to buy product to get digital files. So I think that's really important. I want to see legacy. I want to see pictures on the wall of people's homes. We'll go. I've done all kinds of crazy stuff. I've gone and I'm terrible. Whoever would trust me to hang their wall art, good, God bless them. But I've done it. If they say they want us to come, I've done it. So.
Well, that's an awesome segue into a project that we're working on at your studio right now in California.
Yes.
So how many years ago was it that we kind of talked through some of the things originally, and then you had your displays up, and now within the last, 6 months? Yeah. 4 or 6 months, you've been going back and doing kind of a revamp of the space.
Exactly.
And for those of you that have seen some of our redesigns on the YouTube page, instead of actually being physically there, we're just talking back and forth over Zoom and recording those, and we will be sharing those at some point. So talk about how this new process and your idea of simplicity, and how simplicity is really working into your style, it's working into the products, how you're pairing albums with wall art. Let's deep dive into that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So fortunately, shout out to Bob again. Because he's super handy, and in January I said, like, I really need to get a refresh on my studio, and he went in and then he's like, this is all wrong. I'm going to rip out walls, I'm going to change the floor, I'm going to paint. And I, by the way, am in a glorified garage.
Yeah, but it's a really cool garage.
It is a really cool garage, but it's a 2-story garage maybe. So he proceeded, and actually right at that time I contacted you and I said, hey, listen, I want to do it right. I want to have all the wall art. I want to have everything set up to be selling. And I have some financial goals that I wanted to meet, and I knew that part of that would be selling product. So he provided a lot of white space for me, which was the most important. And you and I talked about like what are we going to do with this wall? And basically what I want to do is have everything again systemized. Even if it's not so much transparent to the client, but it's with Brittany and I, this is what it looks like for a family sale. Like, we want to see, ideally, some type of cluster, some type of wall gallery, and an album for every client. And then we'd also like that with seniors. Now, we haven't had as much success with that.
I'm going to pause for a second. Can you say that again for the people in the back? Just a little bit louder, a wall gallery and an album.
So yeah, absolutely, a wall gallery and an album. And the reason, because we do sell a lot of wall art and we do sell a lot of albums, but usually it's either or, and I don't think it needs to be either or. I think it should be both.
Right.
So
I do too.
I know you do. I get it. Like, I know some photographers out there are going to be exactly the same as me, as I have a lot of repeat clients. So you're not every single time going to get every single thing the same, but every year they can order an album for sure, 100%. And I think changing up wall art, like, create something where you can either add on to it. We really encourage our clients to send us a picture of their wall. And then we talk about, like, hey, we could do this year, and next year we could do this. I have a lot of clients where they've added these amazing galleries all the way down, like a big picture wall or something like that.
Yep.
And we've even talked about, like, what's going to look good together in terms of clothing as your kids grow, in terms of location, how's it all going to, it's an art consultation.
Right.
So I think if you're spending so much time on the front end to talk about outfits and talk about location and spend time on lighting, and they've spent a lot of money on just like the session and getting everything together, that it should be on the wall, and then they should also have an album. There's just not enough space on the wall to put all the great shots. So there has to be a place for the extra shots that are still great.
Absolutely. And I think that's a really great spot to talk about the album here. So this morning, you got to see this album come to life.
I did.
And I do want to point out, too, so I'm just going to hold this out to Connor so he can see it. So this is an acrylic cover album, and this has the champagne chrome, which we were talking about the color tone of the images and the color tone of the cover material, and it's just going to work out perfectly here. Yeah. I'll hand that to you, and if you want to kind of hold that end, and we'll just kind of flip through here. So this has the white inserts and white end sheets. So just a beautiful...
This is my backyard.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not my backyard. I wish that it was. But just to make sure that people understand here what the concept is. So this whole session, or the images that were the favorite from the session, went into the album. And then this afternoon, you're going to see an acrylic be made of one of the images, and that's just one that's going to go into the gallery for the wall.
Right.
So what Kristin is doing, just so it makes sense to everybody here, is that she is selling both, not an either or. It's going to be, here's the beautiful wall grouping, but since you don't have room on the wall for 30 images or 40 images, let's also do this.
Yeah.
And it's not either or. And I really like that. And your intent, and correct me if I'm wrong, is each of the groupings in the studio is going to have a companion album to go with it, which is an awesome thought. So is that something that fits into your Simply Beautiful portraits, or how does that fit into the whole scheme of your plan for the rest of 2024?
Okay, so there's two things here. Okay. So the studio Simply Beautiful Portraits is a new product line that we're going to put together, including everything from the session to the products that go with it. But then the wall groupings and the matching albums will be, so basically what I try to do is show on the wall some diversity in people and the type of work I do, and some locations around Orange County. So when we're finished with all the walls, I'll have some families with younger kids, a family with older kids. I'll have a senior girl, I'll have a senior guy, I'll have a senior styled session. I think I'll have some big medals, which will be all three seniors, I think. Mm-hmm. So, and then each of those will have an album that goes with it, and we can walk around. They'll have different substrates. I keep to 2 or 3 metals, acrylics, and canvas. That's what I use for my wall art. Yep. And then gift prints a little bit. We do gift prints. We do that as an add-on for our packages. So yeah, that'll be all set up like that. Now the Simply Beautiful portraits that we're starting to promote, part of that is because the studio just got redone. Yep. And the studio is so beautiful. And for me, because I really have to condense everything because I do travel, I need to get the most out of each day. The thing that's beautiful about Southern California, obviously, is there's so many places to shoot outside. Right. But what you're limited to, although I can bring lighting and I can do all that, but then people still can't open their eyes in the middle of the day if you're doing a shoot. Right. So, so in order to extend the day, when I am there, we're going to launch a new product called Simply Beautiful Portraits. And that is going to be like a Calvin Klein type inspired images that are in the studio, a very specific wardrobe. We're just going to say jeans, white sweaters, white tops, very clean, all in white. It could be white dresses. It could be a color, but trying to keep it super, super simple.
Okay.
And then we're going to have a Simply Beautiful product line, and that will be the acrylic albums, the acrylic wall art, and I don't know where. We could still talk about that. It's in the process, but we will systemize that product line as well. So we'll have that will be only available in the middle of the day in the studio. That will be hair and makeup person will be there. It'll be a really fun, very hands-on session from me and from my, in fact, I didn't mention this, but my studio manager is also a professional makeup artist, which is a really nice
that's handy.
crossover. So if she can't do it, we have a team of makeup artists that can do it. But yeah, so we're just for me, I'm looking to extend my day, and I think I had some reservations about, I don't know, will people, if they're just on a white background, order albums? And then I saw a beautiful album of another photographer that was doing all in studio. I was like, oh gosh, yeah, this is absolutely, and it's a lot of what my customers like about my portraits is its faces. I'm not doing a ton of
so simple.
Yeah, it's simple, it's clean. Even though it might be in a place that has a lot of stuff going on, there's not it's not super busy, and so I think they would appreciate a white background as well. For some cases, not everyone. They're still going to want to love the beach. They're still going to do that, but it's just an adding. And then because I have a lot of repeat clients, I always want to do something different. It's a nice opportunity to give them a different experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love how, like, I'm sitting here thinking, 2002, I was in the late 90s, how this has really come.
I was going to say, it is my jam.
Yeah.
I only did studio. For the very first year, we only did studio.
Yeah, in the high key. White on
white.
That
was what we mostly did, white on white.
Yeah.
I think we maybe had like a molten blue color. I think we only had 2 backdrops, but almost all white, almost exclusively white. Yeah. So
and I love the simplicity of, like, even looking at this image of this young lady up here, you can see how the seamless paper is rolled on the ground.
Yeah.
At one point in time that had been like, well, why did you show that? But now it's cool. It's very magazine, very, very commercial-esque.
Yeah. And I like that color too, pecan.
Yes.
That's a good one.
That's beautiful. Well, this has been awesome, and we really, really appreciate you sharing.
Of course.
Very openly and talking about how you structure everything, because 22 years, 2 locations, the volume that you're doing, obviously the quality of work that you're doing, it's not easy. It doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we really hope that you've enjoyed hanging out with Kristin today. And just a quick reminder before you go, make sure and subscribe to our WHCC YouTube so you get notified for cool stuff like this. Follow along on Instagram at WHCC Pro. And for all your product detail questions, hit up WHCC.com. I'm Matt, and this is Kristin. Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you on the next one.